My hand! Far out!
Whoa, okay, what, are you alright?
Yeah, I just burned myself. Oh, gods, I feel so stupid.
Why'd you burn yourself on?
It's funny you should ask me that. Ha ha ha! Highly amusing.
Did you burn your brain, Walt?
Another fine joke. No, James, I burnt my hand on the oven.
Right. Sort of thought we were in, like, joke territory here, but it seems like you're actually just insane.
Touch the oven, James.
What?
Touch it now. It's hot.
Why?
The atoms are vibrating very quickly, producing heat.
Yeah, I know why it's hot. Why do you want me to touch it?
You shall become burnt.
Okay, again, you're just stating facts.
So you admit it! The oven is too hot! I just set it to 80 and it's hot enough to burn you! The thermostat is broken and we need to tell the real estate agent. I knew it!
You are a sad, strange little man. You have my pity. Farewell! Struggling to hold on to your laugh before I even finished that line.
It's just such a good line. It's so good.
We have now hit the actual big fandoms. We have entered Toy Story
We've
realm.
entered Pixar,
Yeah.
the Pixar extended universe.
Are we now a part of the Pixar extended universe?
I'd like to think so.
Hell yeah, that'd be great.
Welcome to the Get Commanded podcast by the Greensboro Commander community. It's the GCP by the GCC and POG, Palms Off Gaming, sponsor of this podcast. We're all uniting forces to help you to have better games of Commander.
And
I'm your host, Walt.
And hello, Commander players. I'm your other host, James.
Now, before we get to the transmission,
I'm excited.
We actually have a very exciting announcement.
Oh my god.
We've just launched a Patreon.
We're I thought getting theme music and real branding and getting sponsored was the best we could feel. And now we've got our own fan way to contribute to what we're doing.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
It's super awesome. There's basically 4 tiers. I won't outline all of it right now, but there's loads of different benefits you can get by signing up. And you obviously support us a lot by doing so.
Mm-hmm.
We've got special Discord privileges if you're in the Discord server or if you'd like to join it. There'll be patron shout-outs at certain tiers. You can play games over Spell Table or in person with James and me. If you would like to. And you can even, at the very top tier, suggest podcast episode topics, which is very exciting.
Well, I mean, already we've had some listeners have episodes that they've kind of influenced. We had one of our listeners, Arlo, was really interested in Aristocrats decks.
Yes.
And we ended up doing a deck building episode. Aaron was really interested in the ban list, and we did a ban list episode. And we've realized you guys love when we talk about the stuff that you want to talk about.
Yeah.
So this top tier, you're going to actually get to communicate with the space commanders themselves, which is really cool.
Exactly. Look, we'll it's obviously optional. There's no pressure at all. If you don't have the money or you don't want to pay, that's fine.
Our content is always going to be free.
Yes.
We're producing a podcast that's free right now. You'll always be able to listen.
Yep, absolutely. But if you do have a few dollars you'd like to spare for us every month, we'd really, really appreciate it. It might let us investigate new forms of content or
exciting.
Maybe invest in better stuff for us to make the podcast with.
It's going to open a lot of doors, and obviously Walt and I have been working on this project for nearly 4 or 5 months now.
Yeah, maybe close to 6 now.
Nearly close to half a year, and we're already, you can tell we're super passionate about it. We're taking all the right steps to get there, and if you like this content, we know there's quite a few of you out there now, help us. You can be a part of this incredible project that we're trying to put together. The whole point of this podcast, Walt, you say it at the start of every episode, is to help you have better games of Commander.
Yes.
So if you want to help us with that mission, this is the way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's linked in the show notes, but it's patreon.com. It's patreon.com/getcommandedpodcast.
And you can only access it if you're in Brooklyn.
Need a VPN. Yeah. We're also sponsored by... No, I'm not... We're not sponsored by anything else.
If you ever hear us get sponsored by that company.
Yeah. Speaking of internet coming from strange places...
It was a good try and a good segue.
We have an incoming transmission.
We sure do.
From the deep depths of the galaxy, from the Space Commanders. It's time to get commanded.
Your friend Cooper has left the path of light. He has stopped playing Magic the Gathering. Interrogate his reasons for leaving the game behind, and provide us with methods that will allow yourselves and others to avoid the horrors of burnout.
Okay, they know our friends.
They do. You know what? It's because we talked to him last episode. He was in the skit.
That's so true. If anyone, if you heard the last skit and there was a third voice, that's actually Walt's real housemate.
Yes, Cooper.
Cooper Stubbs. Stubbsy, as he's more colloquially
We will
known.
definitely use those two names interchangeably.
They're the same person.
They are the same person. I am so sorry to Cooper that he's now aware, the Space Commanders are aware of him.
Yeah, if I was Stubbsy, I'd be a little scared that those people have their eyes on him.
We've been locked in rooms by the Space Commanders before. I hope Cooper's not going to do the same. So you'd know from the skit. I suppose it probably makes the most sense. So Cooper basically stopped playing Magic a little while ago.
Yeah.
After we moved in together. At the time, we were both playing a lot of Magic together. We moved in. He's my housemate.
So it was your fault, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's the only explanation. But he's been away from Magic for a while. I thought maybe I could interview him and get what happened basically to him and why he dropped Magic, in the hope that they specifically want us to talk about Burnout.
Yeah.
I was thinking if we can get all the reasons why he dropped Magic, why he's not doing it anymore, and why that happened, maybe, the Space Commanders want us to figure out why so that we can avoid it ourselves, right?
This is almost perfect timing because I'm feeling a little bit of stress, which I might talk about after you've had a chat with Stubbsy.
Sure.
With around Magic the Gathering, and I'm kind of really looking forward to hearing what went wrong for him. That way I can kind of implement some stuff to make sure I do enjoy this awesome game. So all right, well, why don't I disappear for a bit?
Yeah. And
we'll grab Stubbs and you can have a chat.
Sounds good. It's not an interlude. There's going to be no cool cut. In a second, Cooper will be here and... Oh my god, Cooper!
Yo, what's up?
It worked!
Yeah, I didn't realize the Space Commanders were actually real. I thought you and James were just going insane.
They must have done it. I must click their fingers and the Space Commanders have teleported you in.
Yeah, I was playing Pokemon and then all of a sudden I'm in here and I was like, come on, man, I built this awesome team. I was gonna win.
I've ruined your Pokemon grind.
Ruined my Pokemon
I'm
thing.
so sorry. I'm so sorry to take you out of that. Now, some of the super OGs may remember that I actually have interviewed you before for the Know Thine Enemy podcast, which is kind of like the precursor to Get Commanded. There were only 4 episodes.
Yeah.
I think interviewing you might have been my favorite one, actually, now I think about it. We talked about lore and a bunch of other things. It was literally just an interview. If you ever want to know more about Cooper after you finish talking, go back to there and check out the full interview.
It's an old video. It's definitely it's definitely my favorite episode that I've been a part of.
That's fair. I respect that, actually. Oh, great. So, Cooper, we've been living together for a year now.
Yeah, I think it's over a year.
Exactly a year. Is it? It's a year today.
Oh,
I think since we signed the lease. That's wild. How funny.
Wow.
So when we met playing Magic at Greensboro, hence the Greensboro community, all that stuff. When did you actually start playing Magic? Because you obviously only started in 2020. You started a long time before that, right?
I started back in 2011, and my first set was Scars of Mirrodin or Rise of the Eldrazi, or it might have been the core set in between those two.
Damn, that is a long time before when I started. Yeah, sick. What formats of Magic did you play mostly?
So back when I started, it was mainly, I was a young kid, so it was literally scrounge up $20 for draft.
Yeah, how old were you in 2011? You must have been
11.
Yeah, no!
Yeah.
No way!
Yeah,
that's
11.
wild!
Yeah. So yeah, it was literally my week's allowance was okay, cool. Dad gives me $20. I'm gonna spend that all on draft.
Wow. So no cool shoes for young Cooper. No sweets from the lolly shop. It was all just
it was
just magic candy.
It was magic candy. I crack a valuable card. I sell it. I make profit. Mum asks where I got the $40 from. I tell her, don't ask questions.
Young capitalist that you were. What were your favorite formats of Magic? Do you reckon?
My favorite,
or maybe not necessarily 2011, but like across the whole time you were playing.
Across the whole time I was playing, definitely Draft always has a real spot in my heart.
Definitely in 2020 lost a lot of drafts to you. I vividly remember.
Sorry.
No.
Constructed as well is really fun.
Yep.
I love Cube to bits. Cube's amazing.
Yep.
I loved Historic for a bit on Arena until Alchemy kind of just inserted itself in and ruined the party. Like every person who invites themselves to parties. And then, I guess like this is a Commander podcast, so I did like Commander a lot.
Yep.
During my playtime.
Where did you pick it up originally? Like, when was the first time you played Commander, do you think?
When was I think it was C15 with the Planeswalker decks, like the monocolored Planeswalker decks.
Oh, like Doretti and...
Yeah.
Was Amunatu in that one, or was that later?
That was later.
Oh, so Teferi,
Nahiri, Doretti. First time we saw Nahiri and Teferi as Planeswalkers.
Oh, cool.
Doretti, Obnix in his human form.
Oh, wow.
And Freyalise, which first time she got a card.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, so massive war characters and a couple of new ones like Doretti.
Yep.
But yeah, that was sick. And that came out, ironically, in 2014 because Magic Life.
Oh, yeah, it used to kind of be the set ahead. Yeah, I remember I went and did the M21 draft and that was in 2020. Yeah. No, super confusing.
Yeah.
Super confusing. So how long did you actually... So you played from 2011. When... Do you have like an actual date that you basically stopped playing Magic? Like, can you pinpoint it pretty closely?
There's a couple of times where I stopped playing the game in 2017 because I was in high school, so I had like exams and stuff to focus on. So it was a period from 2017 to like the end of 2018 where it's just like I can't really touch this game because I've got exams to do.
Yeah, fair.
Then picked it up in late 2018, early 2019 when exams were all done.
Yep.
And yeah, that was at Good Games Greensboro where the community was very, very small at the time.
Yeah,
but,
much bigger now.
Yeah, much bigger. Still, like the OGs are still playing, which is cool.
Yep.
I started really playing Commander in 2014 when I was borrowing someone's Nahiri deck because they're like, oh yeah, you should play.
Yep.
This is a fun format.
Yep.
And then I got my own deck in 2015 when the experience counter pre-cons were released. And that was
Azuri, right?
Azuri and Marin, which I still have to this day.
Yeah, I lost a lot of games to those Commander decks early in my my Commander career.
Sorry.
No, again, understandable. You were a better player at the time.
Oops.
Probably still are, honestly. Yeah, cool. And then, so when did you completely drop Magic? Like, finally, do you think? Can you pinpoint to like a set or which set was it?
So after Kamigawa Neon Dynasty pre-release was when I just fully dropped it. Just didn't really like have the passion to play it anymore.
I think that was like mid last year, right? Like June or something? Or
start of last year. I think it was around like January or February or something.
Wow. Yeah. So, that's right. I think it was like almost exactly around the time that we moved in together. You stopped playing Magic. It was kind of funny because I met you playing Magic and then it's like, all right, I guess we just live in a house together now.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Now, when you dropped it, was it sort of a sudden, like, that's it, I'm done? Or could you kind of feel that you were sort of... Because the word that the Space Commanders used was burnout, right?
Yeah.
Did you sort of feel the burnout building over time? Or was it just a sudden, like, that's it, I'm done? Or was it kind of both?
It was a very, very slow burn.
Sure.
I think it started around... When did it start? Started around, I guess, like, the Dungeons & Dragons core set.
Oh, yeah. Adventures in the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah. So that was kind of when I realized I had a lot more fun playing other formats than
Then Commander, you mean?
Commander,
Yeah, sure.
So, like, I had a lot more fun playing standard, like the 2022 standard without all the busted stuff.
Yeah.
Like, Uro and other cards.
Oh, that's right. They had on Arena for a little while. You could play, like, basically the next standard, right? They were like, even though the standard rotation hadn't happened, you could play, like... I actually remember because I was at the time grinding Limited. I just wanted to play, like, basically as many drafts as I could, but I kept running out of gems because I was bad at it. So I asked Daniel, who we mentioned a few times on this podcast, is just, like, the resident amazing player at our store. I remember very close games between you and Daniel back in the day, especially in Limited. But but I basically was like to Daniel, hey, can you send me some standard lists that you're, like, doing well with on the ladder right now? Just so I can, like, grind gems.
The Daniel decks, they're so good. They're so mid-rangey and they're so good, they just don't lose.
Yeah, no, it was actually really, really fun. It's basically my only experience playing standard. It's never something I've done. I jumped immediately into Commander when I started playing. But yeah, no, it was a super cool time actually in standard, I remember. So you were enjoying that standard at the time. You were obviously still enjoying Limited, but you were starting to get a bit, like, sick of Commander specifically, do you think?
Yeah, I was getting... I don't know what it was, but I feel like it just got way too oversaturated as a format.
Right.
Back then.
Like oversaturated with new cards?
Just new cards, new content.
Right.
I didn't really like the direction that it was heading.
Sure.
And it's just like, I can't really explain it, but I just wanted to stop talking about Commander because it was so, like, people would say that, like, it's so opinionated.
Right.
And it was so hyperbolic that...
Right, like people, like a new card comes out and someone's like, either someone's like, oh, it's busted, it's amazing, put it in every deck. Or it's like, that card sucks, you should never play it.
Yeah, and my philosophy is always like, just play the cards you have fun with. Like,
totally.
That's what Commander to me always was, just playing cards that you had fun with.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And it's like... Yeah, it got to the point where, because it's such a hyperbolic and anecdotal format, you don't really have, like, any proof or testing to go off rather than your own deck building and your own intuition, which just kind of, like, I'm very much, I guess when it came to Magic, I was very much more of, like, a competitive kind of player who would just play Commander to relax, and then Commander to relax just, like, didn't happen, so I'd end up going back to the competitive formats like Standard, Modern, Limited, Pauper to actually relax, which is kind of, I guess, not really the way it should have been. Yeah,
no, for sure. That's interesting. Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I think I think there's an interesting thing where I think people who play competitive formats who play Commander treat it really differently to people who only play Commander. Because, like, just by virtue of the game being about winning, like, you know, there is a winner in every Commander game, unless you're playing terrible cards that make you draw, which you shouldn't do. But, like, there's a winner in every game.
Do it.
Do not do it. Evil Stubbs is kicking in. You know, there's a winner in every game, and so if you're only playing Commander, you just kind of start to chase that win. But yeah, it's interesting. When I started playing Pauper and sort of got my competitive itch out in Pauper, I started to treat Commander really differently, and it was the same when I started playing CDH, which I know you actually played quite a lot of CDH back in the day, I remember.
Yeah, I think I was the first person at the store to actually build a proper CDH deck, which...
Like from the database?
No, just completely unintentionally.
Oh, right. You just happened to, like, arrive at the synergized list.
Yeah, what happened was, at the store, I was known for playing Urza.
Oh, Lord High Artificer. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't build him with the intention of being CDH, and it just, like, well, you know the card.
Yeah.
It just kind of happens.
It's way too good. It's just way too good of a card. We've talked about that one before.
It went on a 5-month win streak, and then it wasn't, like, it got beat for the first time, and I was just like, I've never felt this feeling before. I must never let it happen again.
So you'd, like, optimize the list.
Yeah, optimize it more.
Force of will and, like, that kind of thing. Mana Crypt. Yeah.
It was a fun deck to play back in the day because it had all this janky stuff like Mere Battlesphere and flickering it to get more Mere to tap for more mana to hard cast Enter the Infinite.
Sure.
Because that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah. But, so do you think playing CDH kind of reinvigorated some of that love for Commander to a certain extent, or did it prolong, like, you leaving? What do you think?
CDH gave me a headache.
Right. Not alone there.
Yeah, it was just like, I think it got to the point where, like, because I was burnt out, I wasn't really having fun with the game, and then CDH giving me a headache because there was a lot more to keep track of in CDH than normal.
In, like, competitive formats, 1v1 formats.
Yeah. Because there's like three other players you have to pay attention to rather than one.
Yes.
And like that just gave me a headache, and I just felt exhausted after playing a 10-minute CDH game, which that's how long they last.
It's a grindy 10 minutes though.
Yeah.
And sometimes a grindy, much longer amount of time. Now I know one thing people talk about a lot in terms of, especially when they're talking about burnout these days, is there's a lot of discourse around product overload.
Yeah.
We hear this a lot. I've seen, charts where people show how many cards have been printed in the last year or the year before last, and how it's so much more than every other card. Like I think the other day we reached a point where there have been more cards printed since like 2020 than have been printed in all the years before that. Like, so there is like a quite quantifiable, massive increase in the amount of product that we're seeing from Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
It's talked about a lot. It's criticized a lot usually in the community. Was that something that you felt when you were playing Commander, and do you think that contributed to you starting to get burnt out on Magic in general?
Oh yeah, massively. I came from an era of Magic where it was like, when I started, it was like, I think it was M11 or M12 and then Scars block. So it was literally Scars, wait 3 months for Besieged, and then from a lore perspective, you had to wait 3 months before you realize if Mirrodin won or if Phyrexia won.
Yeah,
until someone leaked it. But besides the point. So it was literally 3 months between sets. And that was awesome because it let the meta settle.
Yeah.
It let everyone get familiar with the cards really quickly.
Sure.
Whereas like this is an interesting parallel because Phyrexia is back. All Will Be One came out like 2-3 weeks ago.
I think pre-release was about 3 weeks ago, yeah.
And we're already getting spoilers for much of the machines.
Much of the machines, yeah. No, that's true. Yeah.
So it just, like, definitely product fatigue caught me off guard. I think last year, one of the people who worked at the store said that they had a Magic product releasing every month. And that's that's a bit overwhelming.
Totally. That really puts it in perspective, I think, especially when you came from that, like, well, this is the other thing. You came from a time when not only was there only a set every 3 months, but around that time that that Magic was around, there was only one set of Commander decks per year. So, like, for those who are pretty new to Magic, you'll know that pretty much every set these days comes out with 2 to 5 Commander decks.
Yeah.
That was not the case. It was only once a year they released Commander product. And also, they were the regular standard sets were released in blocks. So, like, not only were you waiting 3 months for a set, but like each set was staying on a plane. So each plane was getting about 3 sets was usually the block length at the time.
Yeah.
So you're not only are you waiting 3 months to find out what happens to the Phyrexians and Mirrodin, but then you're getting like another dose of like, you're still in the same mechanics, the same feel, like the sort of consistency across the year would have been quite strong.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly. And it was pretty common for like sets to introduce mechanics at the start, then have a middle set which didn't have as many cards, but like just kind of improved on the mechanics and led into the last set of the block.
Yeah,
which had like new mechanics that built off the second and first set, but still retained the mechanics from the whole block.
Yeah.
I think Dragons of Tarkir is a good example, or like the Khans, Dragons, Fate Reforged block is a good example because you had the sieges which were in every
Monastery Siege and all those cards.
And it was always like Khans or Dragons.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty good. And then you have like sets nowadays which are like, I like how they're one blocked or like as many blocks as they need because back in the day I know Journey into Nyx got a lot of criticism because it was a really bad set. There was Gate Crash that was really bad. It was just like why are you stretching these sets out when it could be smaller, or like you could find something new to do?
So actually sometimes the block structure was like a negative where you're kind of like, okay, I'm ready to leave that plane behind. I'm ready to leave this mechanics behind, see something new. And then it's like, oh, actually, you gotta wait 6 months before that happens. Okay, that makes sense.
And like back in the day, before they started doing like, okay, we're going to go from 3 blocks to 2 block sets.
Right.
The original Battle for Zendikar was going to be Battle for Zendikar, Oath of the Gatewatch, and then Shadows over Innistrad, like immediately cut to Innistrad.
Oh, like mid-block. Yeah.
At the end of the block, yeah.
Right, yeah.
So, and then they're like, no, let's do BFZ Oath.
Yep.
And then Shadows Eldritch Moon, which worked a lot better.
So like sort of 2 and 2 rather than the trying to cram it all into 3. Yeah, okay.
And then you have missed opportunities like a couple of years ago. Kaldheim should have really been like 2 sets. Way too much stuff in that.
Yeah, I think I heard from a lot of people that like they found pretty much everything in Kaldheim really, really interesting. And then were like, well, yeah, even in Kaldheim time, we were sort of in this kind of similar to now product release schedule where it was like, okay, Kaldheim's done, time for spoilers for the next set.
Yeah.
I forget exactly what it was back then, but like, yeah, I think maybe it was Zendikar Rising. Was that before or after Kaldheim? Maybe that was before Kaldheim.
That was before, just before,
okay.
yeah.
And there was another set straight after that one, and yeah, it was like, okay, like, we know you love Kaldheim.
Let's go to Strixhaven.
Yeah, Strixhaven time. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, even before the massive like product fatigue of like 2022 and 2023 now hit, I started noticing a lot that they were printing a lot of legendary cards in a lot like sets after the Guilds of Ravnica like War of the Spark storyline.
Right.
Like just a lot of legendary cards for the intention of being commanders.
Yes.
That was never really like, that was kind of a new thing that we didn't really have.
Sure.
Because it was like these notable war characters would get legendary cards.
Sure.
But not every dual color uncommon would have to have a legendary.
Right.
Or like a rare legendary or even like a mythic legendary or whatever.
Sure.
It would literally be like, okay, if there's a creature that, or like a character that has an important part in the story, they would get a legendary.
Right.
And not just all these like random cards that are obviously built for Commander but chucked into a standard set.
Yeah, we definitely see a lot more creatures printed as legendaries than probably is necessary for like lore reasons, I would say. Like, you definitely feel sometimes the push to have more of those cards.
Yeah.
What do you think it was? I mean, it seems kind of obvious to say, but I'm kind of interested to hear your thoughts on it. What do you think it was about all those products coming out that contributed to you specifically feeling burnt out on Commander? Like what aspect of all these new cards coming out, like, you know, every month there's a set, what part of that then made Commander feel like it was too much and like you wanted to leave it alone?
So Commander used to be like, when a new set came out, there would be 1 or 2 cards that would be like, okay, that would look good in this deck or this deck.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point where it's just like, these cards are obviously in here for Commander players.
Right.
So 1 or 2 cards became 10 or 12. And then 10 or 12 cards became like 20 to 25 cards.
Sure. So you feel this sort of constant pressure to improve your decks. Like, I just put this card in the deck and now I feel like there's a strictly better version that's just been printed. Yeah.
And it's just outdated. I guess that's got to do with like power creep stuff as well.
Sure.
There's also the Commander products, like the Commander decks were really important grabs because they had cards printed specifically for Commander.
Yep.
But because they were only once a year, you could easily like just get them when you can.
Yeah.
Now, because there's like multiple a year, every set seems to have 2 Commander decks at the minimum.
Yep.
It just becomes a bit like hard to keep up.
Sure.
It's like, okay, I still need to get something from the Strixhaven Commander. Adventures in Forgotten Realms come out. I need to get something from there.
Right.
Okay, now I need to get something from the Midnight Hunt stuff. It's
sure.
just like,
I mean, yeah, like in a funny sort of a way, it's almost worse than just a set coming out every month, because there are Commander supplemental products. So it's actually more like 2 sets coming out a month. If you're a Commander player, that's sort of, if you need to keep up with every single card, that's what you have to do, right? You have to see the spoiler season for the whole new standard set that comes out each month, or whatever set comes out, Time Spiral or whatever. And you also need to see the Commander decks and whatever new cards have been printed. Yeah, I see what you mean. That's a lot of cards if you want to feel like your decks are up to date.
Yeah, and that's like, if you're skimming through spoiler season, that's about like 200-300 cards that you're skimming through just to find like maybe 5 or 6 good ones that could really go in your Commander deck, depending on how many decks that you have.
Right, yeah.
And March of the Machines seems like it's going to be even more hectic with all these lore characters coming back, all the lore combination characters, and I think there's something like 300-400 cards in the set, excluding the Commander decks or something like that.
Wow.
Don't quote me.
Yeah,
I'm probably wrong, but just like, it seems that set has a lot more cards than previous ones, so it's just like you gotta look a bit more.
It's a long list that you're looking at. Yeah, for sure. What do you think is there anything you miss about playing Magic?
I honestly miss deck building.
Yeah?
Deck building was super fun.
Yeah.
I miss playing the non-Commander formats.
Yep.
I also miss just like sitting at a table with a Commander deck, joking around, no salt at all, just like, instead of doing the optimal play, doing the fun play, rule of cool and all that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it's like, I think deck building is the one I miss the most. I saw the Ataka World Render starter Commander deck.
Oh yeah.
And then I looked at it and went, oh, I could build it like this, build it like this, build it like this.
Yeah.
And then I realized I haven't actually had that thought in about 2-3 years.
Oh wow, so are you saying there's a chance we might see Cooper back playing Magic and back playing Commander again?
Yeah, possibly. Like,
damn.
I don't know, something clicked.
Sweet. I mean, I'm happy to have you back.
Yes.
Definitely. There's a lot of Commander decks sitting in the box that I haven't seen in a long time. I'd love to see again.
Yeah, I think they're collecting dust, and they'd probably like to see the light of day too.
Yeah, sick.
Oh, well, they're not really seeing daylight. They're seeing like LED store lights. I don't know. You get synthesis however you want.
Magic players don't see daylight.
What's daylight, bro?
What's daylight? Never heard of that. Thanks so much for chatting, Cooper. I reckon it might be time. I know you've heard this through the wall in the next room.
Mate, I hear the whole podcast through the wall. I haven't listened to any of your podcasts because I don't need to. I just hear them through the wall as they're recorded.
Well, then you'll know that it's about time for a thrifty interlude.
Ooh.
So we do have lots left to cover. We're going to get James back in the booth and discuss some of the things we've just heard from Cooper about. But before that, we do have to hear a little something about a new thrifty card. Cooper, would you like to do the honors of reading the card I'll be featuring this week?
Yes, because I remember when this was printed too.
Damn.
2020 or something.
When the world was made.
Yeah. Dark Dweller Oracle. 1 and 1 red. It's a creature, Goblin Shaman, and it's 2 power, 2 toughness. You can pay 1, sacrifice a creature, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. You can also note that this you can do this on your opponent's turn as well, and you may play that card obeying timing restrictions, I believe.
Oh, the tech from Cooper. Thank you. And to the interlude. Do you love the idea of fate, but deeply dislike horoscopes, star charts, the zodiac, fortune tellers, palm reading, wish burning, manifestation, and reading bones? Introducing a weird little man who's not really a man at all. He'll burn stuff in a cave with a bunch of his friends, tell you which of your former housemates is secretly plotting revenge, and call you Larry for no reason at all. Unless your name is Larry, in which case he'll call you a moron. Now that's a cult we can all get into, but we can't get out of it. Get budgeted, budgeted, budgeted.
Wait, where am I?
Oh, you're back! Oh my god,
back.
James, you're back!
Yeah, that was bizarre. I disappeared, and then I was told about the Goblin Dark Dweller, and then I heard that car salesman riff for a while, and now I'm back.
Okay.
That was A bizarre interlude.
The car salesman's powers grow by the minute, it seems.
Yeah, that click really sent me into a different... I have no idea where I went, but I'm back now.
Just back where we can see you, which is good, and to hear you, most importantly. If you want to check out these weird posts as I write them, I do release them regularly on our Discord and the Thrifty Thursdays channel, and you can see me bring some of these to life as strange little monologues and dialogues and such on TikTok at @G_Commander Community, so chuck us a follow on there to see them as they come out.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm really curious. While I was in the abyss somewhere...
Could you hear it all?
Well, I mean, I heard bits and bobs. It was like, faint voices coming through the darkness. But how did you chat with Stubbsy go?
It went well. I feel like I'm understanding a bit more about where he was at and how that resulted in him dropping Magic. I think I want to talk a little bit about where we're at, because I know for a fact that that you've been struggling a little bit with burnout,
and you've just recently taken some decisions to combat your own burnout.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling like I've sort of starting to move out of the burnout zone. If there's a zone that's kind of, maybe there's a chart that's like, your overall enjoyment of Magic, I feel like I'm trending upwards, and I definitely was in a spot where I was a bit lower.
Yeah.
I know you're kind of in the pit right now.
Yeah, I think pit is a pretty harsh word to use.
Sure.
But I think I am in that zone where I feel like Magic is and this is all forms of Magic.
Right.
I feel like it's become challenging for me to enjoy.
Right.
Because I'm so strung up in the deck building process or the teaching someone how to play, or I'm almost too focused on whatever aspect it might be.
Sure.
And I've experienced burnout in lots of different forms before. I actually have on the back of my arm, if you've seen...
I do know the candle burning on both ends.
Yeah, I got that tattoo specifically because I am the type of person that when I get hold of something, specifically something I enjoy, I will burn the candle at both ends. I will drive into it at full force to get everything I can out of it.
Sure.
And I think I've hit the point with Magic in total, it's all formats, the committee work that we do. I've just gotten to a point where I go, okay, well, maybe I need to take a break and take a step back to really, really assess and have a full look at the full picture of what is in front of me and how lucky I am to have it.
Sure.
And even just thinking about doing this process,
it
made me go, oh, this is actually something I do want to fall in love with.
Yeah.
And I do want to maintain. So hearing Stubbsy's story and, kind of understanding that there were points where there were some maybe red flags or some road signs to tell Cooper to think about how he approaches Magic. I'm really glad that I'm seeing them. Yeah. Because I don't want to fall out of love with this game.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I've had a bit of a thing because like I said, I feel like I'm sort of trending upwards, definitely. I totally agree with what you said. It's when it starts to feel like a bit of a chore. And I mean, look, one thing it's a bit hard to convey to all of you out there that the podcast is quite a lot of work. Obviously, to be honest, when we sit down and record, we're having a blast here.
It is great fun. Right now, it's great fun. It's just talking to my best mate about a game that I like to play. Yeah. That's what we get to do week to week. But yeah, behind the scenes,
there's a lot of time and effort that goes into it. And even the day that we record, I know, sometimes our episodes go for 2 hours. If it's 2 hours of audio content, we've probably been in the same, we've been in the zone of recording for 3 to 4 hours at least.
Yeah, probably pushing 4 to 5.
Yeah, it's a lot more time than whatever the running time is.
Let alone the research that we do for each episode beforehand. We make sure that the writing process is quite extensive, especially when we sometimes we'll write episodes individually, but sometimes we'll go about it where we collaborate on an episode.
Yeah, which also requires scheduling time where we can both be in the same room or virtually in the same room. Basically for every hour of podcast, or maybe just for a podcast episode in general, I would say it's at least 6 hours of work. By the time you do recording, all that stuff, and that adds up over a week.
It does, yeah.
For you out there, think about how many hours you spend actually playing Magic in a week, and I reckon it's probably a similar number. So think about the fact that we spend probably roughly about as much time making the podcast, collectively, me and James, as we probably roughly spend playing the game. So like, it's quite a large commitment when you add those two things together, in terms of time and effort and just like thinking about it a lot. You know?
And don't get us wrong, we absolutely love doing this, and there's a reason why you're getting an episode a week. It's because we're addicted to it at this point.
We love it.
But on top of this, Walt and I actually were two of the founding members of the non-for-profit group that we actually built around the Commander community, specifically in Greensboro, but now we're very far spread across Victoria and have members from, surprisingly, some different countries, which is very exciting.
We've there's a reason every podcast episode starts with brought to you by the Greensboro Commander community, is because that's where it started, basically. Me and James were part of that founding group. I actually recently stepped down from being a community member in that community group, partly because of this, basically. I was feeling that there was actually, at that time, I felt there was more time for me involved in these obligations, and that's the key word I want to use, and I'll come back to it in a bit, is these obligations around Magic versus the actual time I was spending playing the game and engaging with the game and being with other people. Like, that became quite a small chunk of it, and that's how I knew it was kind of getting to a bad balance for me.
Well, I mean, for me, like, I'm the president of this Greensboro Commander community, and being the president requires a very big passion, and it has to be an external passion. So I am constantly, week to week, showing how much of an internal passion I have for the game on my face. I'm wearing it. I'm playing with new players, which I love doing. I'm teaching people how to play Magic. I'm talking and promoting about the events that we're running. I'm talking about the content we're producing, spruiking this podcast, spruiking Thrifty Thursdays, whatever the community is doing. I want to share that with our community because, again, it's a non-for-profit. The whole point of it is for the community. And I've just gotten to a point now where I'm like, right, I've been doing this project for 2 years now. And my life for 2 years has basically been about Magic. And I'm not sure if you remember, I actually had a visa sorted, ready to go to Canada.
You did, I remember.
I had a whole plan to go to Canada and do a snow season over there for about 5 months. And I actually decided not to for a lot of reasons. One of them was like an actual paid job thing. One of them was for my partner. But one of them was the community and this podcast. And I thought that, no, I really want to put a focus here. So, like, I have sacrificed some stuff for the game of Magic the Gathering and for Commander. And I love it. I love every bit of it. But that candle is burnt pretty low right now. And I want to say it on the podcast for all of our community and my play group and my friends that I'm playing with that listen to this podcast. It's not that I'm not having fun. It's not that I'm hating Commander. It's not that I even dislike hanging out with you guys. I love that. It's about the fact that I have ran out of fuel in the tank to give specifically for this. So all I'm saying is I'm going to take a little bit of a step back from the committee for a while, maybe some from Commander nights for a bit. I'll still record the podcast because I get to hang out with you. That's great. But yeah, I think I need to refill the tank. So when I come back, I might have a new deck. I might have some new outlooks on how to play Commander. Might take out a couple of counter spells. Who knows? Might be a new James. Maybe green-white will be my colours. Who knows?
Who knows? Well, in that spirit of trying to improve on this, thank you for sharing that, by the way. Like, it's worth mentioning that it is hard work sometimes. Even just playing Magic can feel like hard work. I do want to come back to that word obligation that I used before. Look, the game of Magic is a game. Right?
Yes, like any video game or board game.
Yeah, we play it for fun.
Yes.
Like, that's the primary purpose for the game's existence. There is competitive aspects of Magic. There is, like in our case, community and content-based ways of engaging with the game. But the game itself is still a game where there is a winner and a loser. But ultimately, we're trying to have fun almost all the time. I think like probably 90% of the time we'd like to be having fun when we're playing Magic, right?
I think even when you're like, putting in the hard work of going through spoiler season and finding out what cards, really digging into the nuts and bolts of your decks and, going on Moxfield and looking at the curve and reassessing, even when you're in the pits of doing the really hard work, there should be enjoyment there.
Yes.
There should be.
There should be. Yeah. There should be. I wanted to sort of ask a bit of a question here, because I found it interesting when I was talking to Cooper. A lot of the things that he said that he was getting sick of Magic about were not anything to do... Well, they were quite removed from the game itself. Like, at no point did he say, I got sick of all the counter spells. Or I got sick of...
Spaces.
Yeah, or I got sick of decks playing this way. I didn't hear any of that from him.
Right.
Almost everything I heard was really, when you break it down to it, that they were all extra factors. Things that are around the game of Magic, but are not integrated directly with the game of Magic.
Yeah, right. I actually, weirdly, I want to sidestep a bit for a story. I remember when I was getting into skateboarding a really long time ago, you said to me, because you were like one of my skateboarding senseis at the time, teaching me how to properly do a heel flip and all that kind of stuff. I remember you saying that, like, skating when you were growing up, it was less about the skateboarding and more about the whole lifestyle of skating. Like, after school, you went to the skate park with your friends and you'd talk about, you know, what kind of bearings are you using at the moment, or like what aspect of the trick are you having trouble with, or something like that. So the actual skating bit, you know, feet on the board and pushing the wood and actually doing the jumps, is like a minimal bit of it. But the culture around it is so much more, and there's so much more of skating to engage with. Just like in Magic. Playing the game is actually, these days, a very small portion of it.
Yeah.
There's online content, there's spoiler season, there's drop after drop after drop of secret lairs.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And I think the question that I was wanting to think about was, what do you think is the minimum amount of time you could engage with the game of Magic and still be considered to be actively playing the game? So
engaging with Magic in general.
Engaging with, the game Magic the Gathering.
Playing it.
Yes. Well, like, everything.
Okay.
How much time let's say in a week, right? Because if you're playing weekly, you'd be considered actively playing the game, I think.
Yeah, so I reckon, like, once a week would be that, like, if you're doing something Magic the Gathering related, whether it's, like, actively engaging in Discord conversations or playing the game at a game store once a week, or watching a weekly gameplay content YouTube channel, that's engaging with it once a week. I think that's a pretty, like, even, like, we have weekly Commander nights.
Yeah, and most stores have these weekly sort of things schedules that they work to.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I agree with you. I think, about once a week is about right. But a lot of the things that we look at when we look at, like, what a week of engaging with Magic might be are kind of extra to the actual act of engaging with the game Magic. Like, I sort of want to imagine a scenario where, let's say your weekly Commander night is on a Tuesday, like ours is.
Yep.
You arrive at Commander. Mm-hmm. You play Commander until the store closes or until Commander night finishes.
4 or 5 hours.
You go home.
Yep.
You do nothing else Magic related until next Tuesday. And then you come back in and do the same thing again.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had a week like that.
No, neither have I. but it's kind of an interesting thought exercise. Like, if you were to imagine that person, let's call him, like, Fred, right? And Fred's in the room, and Fred says to you, like, oh, do you think I'm a real Magic player?
Yeah.
Absolutely, Fred's a real Magic player.
You play Magic once a week. Of course you're a real Magic player.
Right? So
you don't need to do all those extra bits.
That's exactly it. And so what I'm trying to get at is...
I see where you're going now. I get it. Right.
A lot of the things that we think are integral to the game of Magic are actually additional. It doesn't mean you can't do them and you shouldn't do them or anything like that, but it means that they're not integral to being a Magic player.
Correct. Right? And I think to take it one step further, it doesn't mean you're less of a Magic player if you don't engage with spoilers, if you don't engage with the deck building as much or anything like that. Everyone, I think it's this same, like, to go back to the skating metaphor, it's if you skate once a week but never think about the bearings you're using, you're still a skater.
Absolutely you are.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to run through, and this is kind of my proposed cure for burnout. Right,
Dr. Walter is in the building, everybody.
Prescribing my suggested ailments and, anyway. My suggested cure is basically a list of things that I think are extraneous to Magic, right? They can be part of it, and if you want them to be part of it, go ahead, but you don't have to.
Sure.
And that's kind of where I want to emphasize here. So, the first one that comes to mind, you don't have to play with people who you don't want to play with. I think a lot of us get caught in this kind of cycle, right? Of, like, I go to the game store every Tuesday, and there's these couple of people, like, you don't have to hate them, but you're just kind of like, I'd sort of rather play with those two over there. But every time you come in on a Tuesday night, you end up playing with those people again.
Yeah.
You feel this almost obligation to play with certain
there's that
people.
Word again.
Obligation, right. So you don't have to do that, right?
Yeah, no, you're so right.
You can just you could have a play group. You don't even have to really play Commander in a game store. Lots of people play just in a regular play group. Even if your play group is not a play group that you're super happy with, there are so many ways to find your Magic community online. There's our Discord server.
Our Discord, yeah, for example, is a great place to start.
Yeah, but there's, weekly Commander nights at loads of different stores.
Yeah.
There's Spell Table. There's loads of ways to form your own play group that play the way you want to play. You don't have to feel obligated to play with certain people.
I am so glad you said this, and I wasn't really prepared for this because, I said when I was giving some context to my burnout, it was around the fact that I spend a lot of my time playing with these new members of our community and introducing them to the game of Commander firstly, but also like the culture of our community and showing them how we run Rule Zero, showing them what kind of decks we have, what kind of content we run, what services on Facebook and Discord and the events that we have coming up.
Yeah.
I constantly feel like I might be playing with these people out of obligation to not even, the game Commander on my own schedule, but for our community and the non-for-profit that we run, I have an obligation there. And of course, yes, I love that, being able to do that and bringing people in. But I do think reminding myself that I don't have to sit down and teach 4 new players every single week.
No, it's not. It's not mandatory.
No, it's not mandatory. And I think I've done a lot of good work when I do sit down with new players. And I love seeing them come in week after week, getting better. And
that's great to watch.
I love it when someone comes up to me that I remember teaching and being like, have you thought of this card in your deck? And it's like, the sensei is being taught a lesson. The Padawan has become the master. I love that feeling because it's like, oh my God, now you get to go and pass that on to someone else. You get to teach someone.
Yeah.
But I think, I kind of thought about this when I decided to take a little bit of a break from the committee work that I do. And I thought, you know what? I haven't actually sat at a kitchen table, like an actual kitchen table with my friends to play Commander in a long time. So I think I would, love to have you over to my place soon to play some proper old school share house day Magic.
It's how we got started, and it's what a lot of people end up coming back to, for sure. The next one I'd like to put out there, this is for those terminally online people like myself.
Yeah.
You don't have to engage with Magic the Gathering on Twitter and Reddit and Discord and Facebook. And I'm going to make a specific shout out. You don't have to engage with spoiler season. You can skip it.
Yeah.
You can wait for the set to come out. You don't have to be on there reading every card, keeping up to date. It's not mandatory. It's not an essential part of the game.
Yeah, there's something I realized about the spoiler season stuff. And Cooper spoke about it earlier, about how the fact that, Phyrexia Orbi one was released 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah, and we're already getting spoilers.
Already, but also, we have had how many legendary creatures spoiled just recently? We had Mulvaney and Yarlok. Yorlog? No,
Multani and...
Yargle and Multani. 18-6 wild
so
stat
funny,
block.
yeah.
And then we also had Talia and the Gitrog monster.
Yeah, Golter and the vampire.
The vampire dude.
Yeah.
You can tell that all these cards that have been spoiled are to make us Commander players get super hyped.
Yeah, I got super hyped.
I am definitely building the Golter. Oh no, I'm putting Golter in my Gishath deck. Yeah, for sure. That is wild.
Multiple Golters in there.
Yeah, sweet.
Multiple Golters. That actually rhymes.
Weird assassination there. But I saw these spoilers, and I do remember the second it went live that I think it was Magic Philadelphia that they were spoiled.
Oh, yeah. I think it just finished. It was like a GP and stuff. Yeah.
Anyway, I remember that seeing our group chats and our Discord and even my Instagram blowing up with all these spoilers and stuff.
Yep.
And I felt like, oh my God, I'm going to fall behind in my knowledge of this game if I don't read these cards and read the comments of these cards and formulate my own opinion on these cards.
Yeah.
Because some people are hating on a certain card or loving a certain card, and there's a polarized dichotomy of are you for it or against it? And I feel like I'm losing my credibility as a Commander player, as a Magic player, if I don't keep up with it. But you're actually so right. Firstly, these cards don't exist yet.
No.
So it doesn't actually matter that they're spoiled.
Absolutely.
You can wait. I mean, I would also love to travel back in time to when, the internet wasn't as strong as it is now. When Magic was played, and you would find out what cards did when you opened them at pre-release.
Yeah.
How cool would that be?
That would be cool. I think... I think I have a recollection that maybe back in the day there was like newsletters and stuff, and so there was still some
Like
amount
a
of spoil-
magazine?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you had to buy the magazine to see the new cards, but it was certainly not to the extent that we have it now, where you weren't carrying a live magazine in your pocket all day.
That would notify, like,
Yes,
tap
that would
you on the
ding you,
wrist.
every time a new card was announced. Yes, it's definitely a new world. But yeah, you don't have to, right? Like, you don't have to even play new cards. We play an eternal format, Commander. And this actually kind of leads me into the next one, which I want to be brief on because I actually have a little bit of a future episode planned around this, which is you don't need to buy more cards.
Sure.
Shocking to a lot of Magic players out there, I'm sure.
It's wild because my wallet is burning a hole in my pocket if I do not spend on Magic the Gathering at least once a week.
I know, right? But like, well, specifically Commander is an eternal format. We covered the ban list in extensive detail.
And we said, like, how, the cards that have been put on it recently are, like, few and far between. There's
Very
like
few and far
between. 3
between.
or 4 in the time that we've been playing.
Yeah, exactly. And they were, like, months apart, each of them. It's not like it was a sudden, if you have your 100-card deck, it's not like there's really been a time in Commander's history where it's like, oh, crap, 5 of my best cards just got banned.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't
never
happen.
No.
Partly because of the singleton thing, I suppose, as well. But like, there is nothing inherently stopping you from just leaving your decks as they are. Like, if you leave your deck exactly as it is, yes, there's an argument to be made that if you're trying to make a really, really strong deck, eventually, like, better versions of each effect will be printed. Yeah, but most of us are not playing CDH. Most of us are playing Casual Commander, and you'd be shocked how long, I think, cards stay relevant for. We always argue like, oh, there's newer, better versions of every card. And it's like, yeah, but it's a singleton format.
Yeah.
There's 100 cards in your deck. You're not falling behind if you don't make a swap in 6 months.
Yeah, well, I mean, we got a bit of a teaser, I think I heard from Cooper being like, maybe I'll start playing Commander again and test the waters. He's got like 20 decks in boxes ready to go that he hasn't edited in a year or more.
Yeah.
So I'm confidently going to say that he will win games with those decks.
Absolutely he
even
will.
if he hasn't upgraded them.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I think when we were talking to Cooper, well, I was talking to Cooper, you were wherever you were.
I don't know where I was. I refuse to let you click on this podcast again.
I'm sorry to remind you of that terrible time in your life.
I just heard voices of Stubbs and Walt chatting about set releases and content. It was overwhelming.
Anyway, one of the things that Cooper said when you were in your place was that he felt this obligation to see the new cards as they came out, right? I've got to see the spoilers. I've got to read all the cards when they're printed. I've got to buy the new cards to put in my decks.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of flawed logic there. Like, I think sometimes it feels like you must keep up. And certainly if you have some desire to, always be swapping your decks, which is totally a reasonable way to play the game, you can do it, but you don't need to.
If you're having fun doing it, then by all means, keep doing it.
Yeah.
Like if you love, like one of our listeners, Fletcher, is obsessed with building decks.
I think he said he has like 60 decks or something.
I have no idea.
I thought we had a problem.
I know. Fletcher's now at the point where he told me that he's like struggling to get the time to build a new deck because he's like trying to just pump them out. He's now created, he's a very smart cookie. He's created an AI that can build a deck for him.
I know. You were telling me about this the other day. Yeah, and then orders the cards for him.
But
crazy.
Fletcher clearly loves this aspect of the game where he's dedicated to building or using software. I don't know. I don't quote me on this, Fletcher. I'm sorry if I'm getting this wrong, but like building an AI that can build decks, like that alone must take some effort and time.
Absolutely.
To make that software. He's got to love that aspect of it to do that.
Yeah.
So like for other people, they go, oh, I hate building decks. So instead of building it and dedicating yourself to what Fletcher's done, maybe you go buy a precon, watch a YouTube video, buy the 10 cards that you need to upgrade it, and do that. And then you're done.
Yeah. Or, like we've advocated a few times before, you can disassemble decks. If you look in your box of decks, that in Fletcher's case is a shelf, an entire bookshelf.
With reinforced steel, 90-degree brackets.
But if you look in that box and you can't pick a deck to play and you feel this anguish over trying to decide which deck, you can disassemble them. And actually, as advocated for way back in episode 9. You should disassemble some of those decks.
Yes, an episode that is constantly revisited by us.
Yes.
Okay, so buying more cards is a big part of
Yes.
like the extra stuff that Commander players feel obligated to do.
The product overload, that kind of thing.
Yeah. If you stop doing that, I think that's going to be a big reduction on what you're going to be engaging with in Magic.
Sure,
You
and,
can
the,
just
and the
keep
burnout
playing...
that comes from that.
Yeah, but you can keep playing Commander. But I actually think I want to add my own kind of flaw on this level is the amount of formats that Magic the Gathering has is pretty overwhelming.
It is.
And I'm curious to know, do you think if you're engaging with Standard, with Draft, with Commander, with Modern, with Pauper, with Australian Highlander, whatever it might be, do you think that is another contributing factor that you're just having to keep up with the meta of Standard?
Yeah.
Alongside the new cards that could make Commander better, or the meta of Pauper. And again, some of these Pauper cards can even make Commander better.
Yeah.
It's so much stuff.
It is so much stuff. I think I would definitely add to that list. Like, you don't have to play more than one format. A lot of people find the one format that they want to play, and yeah, you can just stick in that niche. And I do think that feeling that, again, obligation to keep up with the meta in Standard and the meta in Modern and the meta in Pioneer now, like, feeling that obligation is going to increase your burnout, I think, because the amount of time that you are now having to invest in, again, these parts of the game that are not playing the game of Magic is so high across a week, across a month. It's going to add up a lot.
Well, like, the two formats we play really consistently is Commander and Pauper.
Yeah.
We love those two as, like, our main formats.
And even then, it's a struggle keeping up with both Commander and format and Pauper. And keep in mind, Commander is not a competitive format. There's no meta we have to keep up with. We're just trying to, like, get new cards that are cool.
Yeah, and I think with, like, Pauper as well, like, yeah, we're trying to upgrade our decks and stuff, and because it is competitive, I think we play on Sundays.
Yeah.
So every Sunday we want to be going to the store to compete, to test our decks and stuff like that. But again, we don't have to do that.
No.
We can just enjoy. And this is the thing that I think that by removing other formats of Magic can actually make Commander, because Stubbsy even said it, that he used Commander as a way to kind of relax and decompress, right?
And then it wasn't filling that niche for him.
And then it wasn't filling that niche. And then he said, okay, well, if it's not filling that, maybe I'll go to other formats. And I think he even said something along the lines of that was a bit of a mistake, because he felt like the other formats were even more competitive and more required of you to keep up with, because the format changes so rapidly.
Definitely.
Maybe Commander is our good decompression format.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's interesting when he was outlining, like, he, to us, was an avid Commander player, and when he was talking about the formats of Magic he was playing, Commander was like the 6th one he said.
Yeah.
Like, there were like 5 other formats he was actively keeping up with and playing and competing in, and then he was playing Commander as well.
Yeah, and he was playing Infect in all of them.
He loves it. He absolutely loves it. The last one I want to propose here is a little bit contentious, but I think it would help a lot with specifically Cooper. When I was talking to Cooper, I really kept on thinking about this. It goes against the grain of this podcast, and it goes against the grain of what Wizards of the Coast have been kind of pushing for so long. You don't have to play Commander.
Walter.
I'm so sorry to be the one who has to be the bearer of this news, but, you know, yes, it's the most popular format of Magic. We obviously love it. We're not going to drop Commander anytime soon. We think it's amazing. We love the way that it plays out. But I think there are a lot of people these days who, especially with competitive formats, feeling a bit stale or feeling like they're closing down a bit. You know, Standard is kind of almost exclusively played online.
Yep.
This kind of thing are increasingly being sort of just railroaded by Wizards of the Coast into Commander. They're sort of pushing it so hard.
If you want to play paper Magic in a game store, you go to the Commander night.
Yeah.
Because that's in most of the game stores that I go to nowadays, the most popular night for Magic the Gathering is Commander night.
Yeah.
It easily gets, like, just at our Greensboro store, we easily get 70 to 80 people crammed in the store. Like, we have to get trestle tables out and push bookshelves out the way for the Warhammer stuff to be moved aside.
Yeah.
So we can get people in.
It's huge. And we actually know now from Wizards of the Coast, as of about 3 years ago, that Commander, for some time now, has been the most popular way to play Magic.
Yeah.
I don't know how exactly they know that, but I believe it. I agree with you.
Too.
The Commander nights at the stores that we go to are basically jam-packed. But look, it's a very particular kind of way of playing Magic. It's actually really, really different to
very
playing...
unique.
It's very unique. It's very different to playing 60-card Magic. It's very different to playing 4-of-a-kind Magic. Very different to 1v1 Magic. It's really its own way of engaging with the game. And again, we love it, but you don't have to engage with Magic in the form of Commander. You can play, like you listed a few earlier, there's Alchemy now online. You can play Draft and Sealed. You can play Pioneer.
Pioneer's getting really big in Australia.
It is. It's picking up a lot.
The Good Games franchise run like a super series that's very popular.
Yeah.
Very popular.
They're pushing it sort of a bit higher than Modern these days. But in Australia, we have Australian Highlander, which you referred to before. Explorer, Brawl, Tiny Leaders, Pauper, EDH. There are so many formats of Magic out there. And a lot of them have very active communities of people who are engaged in them,
sure.
especially when you're playing online. You don't have to play Commander. We hope you do, because we love it and we'd love to play you in it, but you don't have to.
And I'm assuming you're listening because you're also a Commander player.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, like, if you're having this maybe fatigue with the most unique aspect of Commander, which is the social aspect of Commander.
Yes.
And I think that's a bit that I've heard even from our community, that some people are like struggling to have really good Rule Zero conversations because they're getting a bit of a fatigue around it.
And struggling to politic with other players because they don't feel like they don't have the language to use to engage with that. Yeah.
I totally get that. I hear you. I think that maybe a good respite for you, if you're a competitive person when it comes to Commander, go play a competitive format for a hot minute. Go play, like, if you're a local listener in Melbourne, come and hang out with Walt and I on Sundays at Good Games, Greensboro, and we'll play Pauper with you. You can borrow one of our decks if you like.
I've got about 8 of them at this point.
Yeah, I've got 3. I've got some pretty, like, I've got 2 Izzet decks and a mono blacklist. Surprise! Surprise. But yeah, like, I think that when I started playing Pauper, I got a really good satisfaction of being able to play the game of Magic, but not have to be social about it. And it's like, obviously I'm polite and I say hello and good game and all that kind of stuff. But when I sit down against my opponent, I'm like, right, in the zone, play my cards. Do I win? Yes. Awesome. Fantastic. Move on to the next round.
Yeah.
Thank you for the game. It was great. That's all I needed to do. If you're burnt out socially, but still want to engage in Magic, that's a great way to do it. Another really, really great way to do it, and I've been doing it a lot recently, Arena. I know a lot of people poo-poo Arena, but if you just want to play out Magic cards and try new interesting combos and stuff like that, play it on Arena. You don't have to talk to anybody. It's wonderful.
It's a great respite for sure.
Well, currently playing a mono red 1-drop list on Arena.
He actually showed me before. It was really sick. If you should post a screen grab of that list.
Sure, I'll post it in our
Discord. Yeah, it's a really cool list. Well, look, remember the purpose of Magic the Gathering is playing Magic the Gathering. Everything else is secondary, even deck building. As a mindfulness exercise, try to remind yourself that you are enormously lucky to be able to play a game with an active and diverse community where you get to talk to people in person, build decks that represent different facets of yourself, and use your problem-solving skills to reason your way through difficult problems. The game is really fun, so it's up to you to find the way of engaging with it that you find most rewarding. There's nothing wrong with stepping away for a while to work it out either. We're all on separate journeys, but we're not alone.
Space Commanders, command received. You're really getting into the salute now.
Yeah, you've won me over. I'll admit it.
I just think it appeases them, you know? Like, it makes them less scary if I'm like, yeah, I'm on your side, Space Commanders.
I feel you. Yeah. I feel you. Well, to the listeners out there, do you feel commanded? Have you ever experienced burnout, and what helped you to get out of it?
Yeah, and look, if you want to connect with Walt and I and even share some of your own stories, you can send us an email, you can talk to us on Twitter, but the best way to get in contact with us is, of course, join the Discord, it's linked in the show notes, and you can chat with other members of our community like Stubbsy, who is actually on that server.
Oh, so
if you want to get in touch with Stubbs, you can message him on that server.
Yep.
You can talk to other members of our community, and we've even had a couple of posts recently about people feeling a little bit burnt out from Commander. So I think it's a good time for us all to come together and like you said just before, it is as a mindfulness exercise. We are incredibly lucky to be able to play this game.
Yeah.
I think uniquely our generation, this, maybe like late teens to, actually the range of Commander ages is pretty old, but late teens to maybe mid 40s, this range of people in this generation, this technological world where we're really busy all the time, it's rare that we get to sit down with each other, and even having the access to talk to each other online about something that we have a passion over, is awesome.
It's
I
good to
love it.
have excuses to spend time with people, I
Yeah.
think. Especially, like we said, most game stores have, like, weekly events.
Yep.
It's a really good excuse that, like, if you have a crazy week at work, at the very least, on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night, whatever night you go to, or the day or whatever, you get to just hang out with some people and chat and play a game.
It's awesome.
It's really, really cool.
Well, also, if you are really encouraged and feeling good about the message that we're setting out with this podcast, please support us. There's a couple of ways you can do this. The first way is leaving us a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. For some reason, Google is a bit weird and doesn't let you review it. But you can tell your friends about us.
Yes, please do.
And definitely send this to someone that you might feel is being a little bit burnt out by Magic at the moment. This is definitely an episode with a good message, and I want to spread it.
Definitely. And like we said, we do have a Patreon now. If you've got the capability and you'd like to support our podcast, you like what we do, every dollar counts. So please check it out. It's linked in the show notes, and it's a really, really great way. It's the best way, really, to support our content directly. And if you do, we'll really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, and there's going to be some really exciting stuff through Patreon, so check it out. Also, again, quick thanks to Palms Off Gaming that sponsors this podcast. They're an awesome local Melbourne company that makes some really cool accessories for trading card games in general, boxes, card sleeves, binders, and so much more. You can check them out at palmsoffgaming.com.au.
Yes, that's all of the stuff.
That was a lot of
That's
stuff.
all the magic, all the burnout. We've done all of that. The Space Commanders are appeased, we hope. It is tradition to planeswalk out of here.
Oh, we're going to take a bit of a respite. This is actually the most appropriate time to planeswalk.
It is. Maybe the planeswalk should go for an hour and 10 minutes as well.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, strap in, everybody. It's my week. We're going to talk about something I want to talk about.
What would you like to talk about in your planeswalk, James?
I feel like I might get flack for talking about this one.
Sure.
Because it's like a bit of a fanboy area that I'm like,
okay,
I just dip my toes into every now and then.
Sure.
Call of Duty.
Oh,
yeah.
So, contentious. I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, obviously, I think the online. I usually mute all the lobbies that I'm in.
That's wise.
Yeah, I think
for
Call
your
of
own
Duty...
mental health.
Yeah.
In the same vein of avoiding burnout, avoid your brain imploding by muting all of your Call of Duty lobbies.
Screaming 12-year-olds calling me words that shouldn't be in a dictionary.
No.
But no, I've been like I said, taking a bit of a step back from Magic, and I found that my free time is fruitful. Like, it's opportunistic. I have so many things to do, and honestly, like, I found myself a couple of times being like, oh, what should I do with this free afternoon? I could go on Moxfield. No, I shouldn't do that. I could build it. No, I shouldn't do that. I could watch Command. No, I shouldn't do. All right, I'll just plug in. I'll get my headset and my controller and sit down at the Xbox and boot up like whatever game.
Shooty.
Honestly, it's very cathartic.
I can believe that.
It's really cathartic.
I was not an avid Call of Duty player growing up, but I played a lot of Star Wars Battlefront.
Oh, I love that game as well. That was
the OG Star Wars Battlefront 2 I used to play.
That was on PlayStation 2. I had 4 memory cards filled with Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Yeah, that game was amazing. And then I played both of the newer games that came out. So the EA one, like 2015 or whatever, and then 2017 or whatever it was.
They were really good, but they stopped working on it.
Well, they ended... It was so funny that Star Wars Battlefront 2 had that really contentious release. Sorry, I'm like ruining your plane.
No, we're planeswalking to Star Wars now, which is not unusual for us.
They had that super contentious release that basically...
The pay-to-win stuff.
Yeah, they basically resulted in all of the new laws we have around loot boxes in video games. Really great that happened, but Star Wars Battlefront 2 was the worst that it got.
I mean, it was the reason that all those court cases happened.
Pretty explicitly. So they basically spent the next year and a bit walking back all of that stuff so that there was no pay-to-win elements at all.
And it ended up being really good.
They added a bunch more stuff. They added
really good.
Stacks more characters. They added Anakin to the game and Count Dooku and stuff.
Yeah, it was really cool.
And they also added my favorite thing they did after very much a huge community outcry was they added a game mode where you could invade a capital ship. Off the surface.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you'd play on the surface of a planet, and then in order to win, you'd have to get in their ship and then blow up their ship. But if they won that section, you'd go back to the planet. They could try and get into your ship. It was amazing. It went for 40 minutes. It was incredible.
It was and the lobbies were 80 people big.
Yeah,
it was
really
massive.
huge. Yeah.
Hey, Anyway,
Sorry, Call of Duty.
Call of Duty. I think in a similar, because I played those games as well on Xbox, and it's
Yeah.
a very similar thing of like, it's such an escapist place for
Yeah.
me to go to. And like,
Definitely.
I feel like with Call of Duty, like, I've not played it in like, because I'm playing the Modern Warfare 2, the new one.
That's so funny for me to
Yeah.
my brain to wrap my head around because I played the original
Modern Warfare 2. This is the new Modern Warfare 2.
Yes, which is so funny.
The
but yeah.
reason why I jumped back on it is because I saw that season 2 of the online stuff has just come out. So there's a new battle pass.
So it's
and
like a
there's-
season pass kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay,
so there's
cool.
like a new battle pass and stuff, new stuff to unlock, new
Sure.
maps,
Oh.
returning maps as well. Do you remember Dome? It's like the
big
really
satellite dish.
yeah, with like the really tight corners and the like.
Yes.
There's like shipment style, like
Yeah.
really fun.
That was a really cool map. I remember
Really
that one.
quick run and gun.
Yeah.
Like you bust out the AK-47U to go as
Yeah.
quickly as possible.
For sure, for sure.
It's been really fun, and I've just started getting back into it. But my Discord is linked to my Xbox as well. So if you see me online playing Modern Warfare 2 and you
Wanna-
want to jump in a lobby,
Go shooty
go
with James.
Go shooty with me. I'm keen to play some season 2.
I honestly appreciate that a lot as a way to, like, it's basically as far from Magic as you can go, right?
Yeah.
There is, like, the problem solving is like, oh no, I have to
Minimal.
reload.
Yeah, it's more about like the thing that I love about it. It's like the hand-eye coordination aspect of it. Like I think you experienced this a lot with Rocket League, which was one of your favorite
Oh
video
boy,
games.
yeah, I played
which
a
is
lot
all
of
about
Rocket League.
which is all about like how your thumbs and hands and fingers like move at just the right time in correspondence with your eyes, and it's like milliseconds because the technology is so good now.
Yeah.
There is like milliseconds of delay between you pressing a button and something happening on
Yeah,
screen.
I remember I watched a really, really interesting YouTube video that was like, why do people play video games? And it basically broke down, sorry, it's like a huge Planeswalk now, but
Yeah.
it broke it down into like, I think there were like 5 categories. And one of them, which I found really interesting, and I realized a lot of the games that I've enjoyed a lot over the course of my life have been this category, is actually flow. And it talks about
you do get in that
games
yeah.
where the kind of the enjoyment comes from getting in that groove.
The zone, as
In the-
athletes would
yeah,
call it.
yeah. Where you kind of feel that like, yeah, everything is happening like simultaneously and without effort, and you're like absolutely nailing it.
Call of Duty is one of those games.
I think Call of Duty is one of those
Yeah.
games where if you are doing it right, in the case of Call of Duty, it's pretty explicit. If you get a kill streak, it's
Yeah.
literally like you have.
You've been rewarded for doing the
Yeah.
thing really well.
Absolutely.
Adding on to this already long Planeswalk,
Sure.
I actually saw something like years ago that one of the medical schools in London
Mm-hmm.
actually advised their surgical students to play video games because it increases their dexterity under pressure. So the whole point of having steady hands as a surgeon is very important, right?
Yeah,
you don't
yeah.
want to slip and accidentally cut the wrong bloodline.
Kind of important.
Yeah, pretty important. I've had a few surgeries in my time. I'd really like my doctors to be steady-handed.
I like to be alive after the surgery, yeah.
But this med school was actually giving students really stressful and dexterous games to play to force them to be calm under the pressure of the video game.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty cool, right?
That's super cool.
So anyway, I'm going to be a doctor in a couple of years after I play Call of Duty.
It's only a matter of time.
Oh, lordy.
All right, that's all we have time
That
for.
is it now. We've talked about video games for long enough.
Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next week.
See you, Commander players.
Bye.